If you're ready to hit the track in the iRacing Ford FR500S Mustang, then sign up for the Barber Ford Mustang Club today. With great prizes from our awesome sponsors, this league is fast, fun, and best of all, free to race in. Take on 6 races of wheel-to-wheel action, all broadcasted live on Pit Stop TV. As a member, you will receive a $500 voucher to Barber Ford, plus entry into a raffle for a brand new Fanatec H-pattern shifter. Every point you earn on the track is 1 entry into the raffle, meaning you can race your way into a brand new Fanatec shifter drawn on December 15th. Battle your competitors at Charlotte Motor Speedway, Watkins Glen, Road Atlanta, Barber Motorsports Park, Brands Hatch, and for the finale, Lime Rock Park. Join the Barber Ford Mustang Club at League ID 3350.
Watkins Glen International embodies everything you want in a classic American road course. It used to run through the town of Watkins Glen, now has been formed into the beautiful 2.45 mile NASCAR Cup course that we are on today. Of course, it does have the IMSA variation, the boot configuration here at Watkins Glen, but today we're on the short course that is oh so quick, and as our very own Emerson Arden would put it, a Popeye's biscuit away from an oval. It's got a few fast twists and turns, runs up the hill through the S's onto the back straightaway, has the inner loop on the back stretch, then around the carousel, and then just 2 corners to go, turns 6 and 7 before completing a lap here and diving right back down into the 90 at turn 1. Zach Murtis, welcome to Watkins Glen. Everybody, welcome to Pit Stop TV, the virtual Watkins Glen International. This is going to be a fun one this evening, a home track for many in this series, in the Noble Can-Am series. This is one that these drivers have marked on the calendar since this series started. It is good to be here as we join the sim virtually. You can see this track now in front of you virtually. This is going to be a weird one. We're actually in the later stages of the day as well, towards sunset. Weather conditions 70 degrees. Well, they went away. 70 degrees in the air, 75 looks like on the track. A weird set of track conditions for these guys today, Zach, but it's going to be a good one.
Absolutely, and just a weird track combination and car combination, really. Super late models, late model stock cars, not particularly seen running on the road courses of Watkins Glen, especially with the NASCAR layout, but definitely something you would see on a local short track, something you would see at a track like Hickory or South Boston or Five Flags even. And just looking at the track, you see how they're going to go into turn 1 through the S's, the inner loop, and the carousel. It creates just a crazy layout for how these cars are going to handle. They've got more right turns really than left turns, and you can see on the left hand side as well that we have track records listed, but we don't have one for the late model stock car because once again this is not a track they typically run. So to see these cars out here in this layout, it's going to be one heck of a night.
Well, the best lap so far from any drivers by Spencer Torrance. Now Zach Millett, a 1:11.505, which, by the way, is an astonishing number, and we'll cover this in a moment, an astonishing number ahead of late model stock cars. We'll get to that in a moment, but definitely some fast times flowing in here at Watkins Glen, competing with NASCAR Xfinity Series and ARCA Menard Series cars at their fastest. That's enough about the track map. Let's take a look at our standings coming into this evening. Zach Millett on top in super late models at 1,076 points. Sean Roberts 159 markers behind the points leader. Spencer Torrance, who was fantastic last week at Montreal, 7th in the standings, only ahead of Parker Collins. Over on the late model stock car side, it's now Kevin McCann over Brian McCann. Kevin will have to serve the larger win penalty. He'll be starting from the rear, and I believe from the pit lane as well, potentially, as Brian McCann will have a significant advantage. Second in the standings, only 13 markers behind his brother. Steve Singer, this is the racetrack he's got marked off. He is a New York native. This is the racetrack he knows and loves so well. We'll see if he's able to put that number 6 car well out front of the field this evening. Mark Thomas, everybody else there in late model stock cars, falling back just a little bit. But enough about the standings. Qualifying's on track, and Zach Millett is quick. Let's get the ticker up on the left side of the screen, and we're going to see something very important here, Zach. The super late models in timing and scoring are grouped together, separated by just about 2.5 seconds. However, the late model stock cars are 4 seconds off of some of those lap times. In fact, it is a 3-second difference between super late model pole sitter currently Zach Millett. I'm gonna have to. That's gonna trouble me all season long. Zach Millett, there we go, in the 315, 3 seconds back to late model stock pole sitter Steve Singer as they stand. This will be the first race, I think, all season long, and one of the only races where we will see a very clear class division.
Absolutely. The late model stock cars obviously are very, very grippy. They have a lot of cornering speed that they can utilize with that grip, but the super late model obviously takes the cake with the straightaway speed, the horsepower, the overall speed difference is very much apparent, especially at Watkins Glen, that has a very, very long straightaway, a corner that is known, the carousel, to be, just having more general speed than a lot of these technical corners. And just seeing how these guys are going to operate and seeing how they're going to take on the track, it's going to be very apparent how quickly the super late models will more than likely catch the late model stock cars to start lapping the field.
This will definitely be a unique round. If we look at the schedule, we already, of course, take in what we have through this point of the season. Just think about the previous 3 races. We have seen very much mixed fields. There has never been a clear delineation? That's not the word I'm looking for. A clear separation, we'll say, between classes, between super late models, late model stocks. There has never been a clear separation. Tonight, Watkins Glen, not the race I would have expected to see it, but we did see the track map, we did see all the straight lines, all the on-throttle sections, and we can bring that track map back up here. Round number 4, finally, the time we're going to see the super late models, I think, pull away. Again, look at this track map. You're on throttle from turn 1 when you leave the 90 all the way to the inner loop. Then you're back on throttle briefly into turn 5 of the carousel. Then you're back on throttle from the carousel to turn 6. Back on throttle from 6 to 7. Back on throttle down the front stretch. At Montreal, you could pick out a lot more pieces of racetrack where you had to brake. You had to break up that super late model singing at all of its glorious RPMs. Tonight, it is so much on throttle through 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be an interesting race, and we're finally, I think, going to see that class separation. It's going to be a much different race from what we've seen all season long and what we will see the rest of the season. That, I think, is the most important part of this round now, is we see how qualifying is played out, and we get to talk about our race grid. I'm all over the place, I will say. It's been a weird weekend for me, Zach. I don't know about you, but this race, I think, is only going to cap off a really weird weekend as we have got cars headed to the grid. Zach Millett, I gotta keep getting that one in. Zach Millett, not Millett, Zach Millett. Hopefully he doesn't hate me too much for it. Zach Millett will lead us to the green flag in car 315. Spencer Torrance in that Brez Coffee Company number 10 will join us from second. Starting third, it's Sean Roberts in the 66. Joe Tucker will grid up from the 4th position as Jason Duckworth rounds out our super late models. Steve Singer will lead us to the green in the late model stock cars from position number 6, and starting 7th and 8th, you'll find Brian McCann and Mark Thomas. Starting from the 9th position overall, you'll find Troy Radford in car 94, Brandon Mefford in car 83. They are 4th and 5th in late model stock class.
Rolling on down the rest of the field, Chris. Oh, I'm gonna. It's gonna be a little bit of a challenging night for me, as I can't see anything. It's blurry.
Well, that is Chris Gones in the 11th position. Jason Netherly will start from 12th, making his return to the series. Starting 13th, it'll be Jesse Redding, Leonardo Elijah from the 14th spot. Starting 15th, Jacob Elliott. Kevin McCann will start from the pit lane, despite qualifying 16th alongside Jacob Elliott in the 07. Mark Truxell grids up from the 17th spot, 12th in class. Chris Elliott from 18th, 13th in class. And finally, back row of the field, Matthew Kopp in the number 22, and Eddie Rose joining us in the number 88. And the big thing in the late model stock class, of course, with the 33 car having to start from the pit lane. Usually, that's not exactly something you want to have to do. Tonight, it is what he has to do. The league mandated Kevin McCann must start from the pit lane, I believe. Let me brush myself up on that. Now, for Zach Millett, he'll be able to take the green with the field, but he has to then come down the pit lane, which is the big thing there. And yes, pit lane start for Kevin McCann, pass-through penalty for Zach Millett, and it doesn't say anything about an EOL for the 315 either, so he may be able to start from the front of this field, but has to serve that very, very penalizing pass-through penalty, which is going to set him well back. And I think for the first time, we might also see a race where Zach Millett really has to work and might not get back through this field.
You know, one interesting thing that I personally started thinking about just a second ago, when you said EOL, does he if he were to have to take an EOL, is that end of the longest line overall or end of the longest line per class?
I think it would be for the overall field. We've seen that actually last week. Zach Millett had to start from the end of the longest line, which was actually, I think it was a pit lane start for him last week. The week prior would have been end of the longest line, which was behind the entire field, and he had to race through the field of late model stocks. But you can see the super late models leading us into the inner loop for the first time. The bus stop here. This, I think, will be our most interesting piece of racetrack on lap number 1, Zach, for great reason. This is where everybody's going to have to come to a sudden stop after being on throttle from the 90 at turn 1 all the way through the S's. This is where it's all going to come to a crashing halt for some.
Absolutely. You can always blow the bus stop. We've seen it countless times in, I can't tell you how many different cars. We've seen it in Cup cars. We've seen it in Porsches, Ferraris, BMWs. You name it, we can see it happen. But these guys are going to have to be on it. But the late model stock cars and the super late models, obviously they got those short track brakes. It's going to be pretty easy for them to get stopped, I would think, and put that car right where they need to, right on the rumble strips, and set them up great for the carousel. But Andrew, they're coming through the last couple of corners. We got 5 super late models, a 60-minute race, 40 laps or 60 minutes, 45% fuel, 2 tire changes, 1 fast repair, and a penalty when you hit a 21 incident count. Super late models coming off the last corner. Andrew, it's all yours.
Into the restart zone here at Watkins Glen International. Zach Millett will take the green flag with the field, but must serve a pass-through penalty at the completion of lap number 1. That is your super late model green flag. The late model stocks now onto the front stretch. Steve Singer leads us to the green. A New York native, he fires down to the 90 for the first time, in control of the field. Contact in the back as Jacob Elliott moves down in front of the 21 car of Jesse Redding, who nearly gives him payback in turn 1. Redding falls back, Elliott slides into the 7th spot, and our race leaders in super late models are down the backstretch into the bus stop for the first time. Zach Millett getting away from the field early. He's got to put as much time as he can down on this first lap.
Look at how easily they hop over those rumble strips, just setting these cars down into the corner. A view from going into the bus stop with the late model stock cars. You can see just how much they pitch that corner to get into the bus stop, and oh my goodness, look at how smoothly they flow through there into the carousel from the bus stop. It's just so amazing to see as they come off the corners. Coming on to lap number 2, Zach Millett should be serving his penalty right here, if I'm not mistaken, his pass-through penalty.
And he is. Zach Millett into the pit lane. This is going to be a challenging one for him. He's got to go down this entire pit lane at 40 miles per hour, a very slow speed, although it is a road course, and you do have the slowest corner on the racetrack just ahead of you at turn number 1, the 90. So, it's not the worst thing in the world, and he's actually going to be in front of a lot of the field, I think, just based on how this field is already stretched out over 23 seconds in one lap of racing. I really think he and maybe this is the next step as he blends in front of Jesse Redding, who is 8th in late model stocks. This is less penalizing, I feel like, than it was last week for him to start from the pit lane. This really hasn't done a whole lot to him, if I'm being completely honest. This is, I don't know, it's not what I expected at all.
Well, looking at it this way, he was 18 seconds back by the time he exited the pit lane. He's already half a second up. He is closing in on 17 seconds here behind the leader, and that's the leader for the super late model division, that is. That's the ticket shows. It only shows per class. As it runs overall, I believe he's somewhere just outside the top 10.
Oh, that was late.
That was very, very late.
That was a late push there to the inside of Jason Nethery, who allows Millett to have the corner. And he goes on by another late model stock car at the very back end portion of the lap. Jacob Elliott working on Chris Goins. They'll be the next to have to deal with Zach Millett flying through the field as Elliott moves down to the inside of Goins at turn 1. Passes the 28 car. That's good for 5th position, as lap 2 is now in the books of an expected 40. Now, these guys don't necessarily go all 40 laps here in these races, all laps that are set aside for these drivers. They could at the time limit, however, that should not be an issue this evening. No rain or anything. Shy of a massive caution red flag scenario, there's no reason we'd be halted. I think the one thing that's going to save the Supers, by the way, is the fact that this is probably the easiest track to get around on the schedule, and it's certainly not the easiest track to win at. But it's the easiest track to just get around at face value. There's much fewer places where you can lose time. There's only really turn 1, the bus stop, and maybe the carousel, and 6 and 7 are pretty well cut and dry. I suppose you can lose a little bit of lap time, but not nearly like the other 3 portions of the racetrack at turn 1, the bus stop, and turn 5. Those are the spots where you lose time.
Absolutely, and it's so interesting, really. I've said it already. I'm going to say it again. And whoa, wow. Look at the speed difference on the front stretch going into turn 1. That is going to promote Zach Millett to
7th overall.
7th overall, but would be P3 in the late model stock division. As you can see them roaring through the S's. Look at the closing rate from the super late model to the late model stock car. Obviously, the 50 of Thomas is going to give up that preferred line so Zach Millett can ease on through. And it is just, my goodness, you just love to see it, really.
A lot going on the racetrack, actually, throughout the entire field as Millett now closes in on Steve Singer. That is now a 1.5 second exchange and closing. Millett reeling in the 6 car and driving away from the 50. Kevin McCann, we'll briefly go to him in a moment once Millett passes the 6. McCann coming back from his win penalty from a week ago at Montreal. McCann, I got to keep these straight. We got Millett with the win, McCann with the win, all this. A lot of M names winning in this series. But Kevin McCann, won last week in late model stocks and had to start from the pit lane in this race. It has definitely hindered him today and will likely keep him from victory, but you can never say never as Millett goes on by Steve Singer and is now just 17 seconds behind the race leader overall. Singer kind of being a thorn in Millett's side, just getting back to his right side there, but allowing him to clear him back into the S's. Now back on to Kevin McCann. He is just 10th behind Mark Truxell, and this is for 10th position in late model stocks. McCann, again, having to start from the pit lane, had to spend 8 seconds in the pits before he could get going for this race. Has passed Eddie Rose, Brandon Mefford, Matthew Kopp, and Chris Elliott. Is working here on Truxell. This will be the 5th car that he has passed since the drop of the green. It's only lap 5. That is a wonderful stat if you're Kevin McCann, a terrible stat if you're everybody else.
And You can see here Truxell just giving way a little bit, allowing McCann to go by going into the bus stop. They were racing pretty hard up through the S's, but obviously that battle has kind of run its course, and we've got another battle on track here. 22 and the 29 of Elliott and Kopp just going through the carousel. Matthew Kopp on board with him right now. You can see just how much he dips those right sides onto the rumble strips, almost in the grass there, Andrew. Doesn't use really all of the racetrack there on exit, and that kind of hurts him overall while he tries to catch Elliott here for the 12th position. You can see just how much the braking difference is really between the two of them as the 29 pulls away just a little bit more, ever so slightly, off of each corner.
Meanwhile, completely different situation. You've got some torn up panels on these race cars up for second, third, and fourth. Already, Brian McCann has got some damage on the number 3 car. You can see left front damage there for the blue number 3, and maybe some left side damage as well for Mark Thomas. He's definitely got nose damage. I'm not sure how these drivers have managed this already. It's only lap 6, and they've got bent up quarter panels as Kopp now gets on by Chris Elliott up the S's. That might have been with contact as well. So a lot going on. These late model stocks will get physical, and drivers spoke about this after Montreal last week, theorizing about how physical this race may get at times, and clearly we're seeing it already.
Absolutely, and it's amazing to see how these cars can get so physical with each other. You can see right now they're battling very, very hard going into the last corner, side by side on exit, and it looks like Mark Thomas is going to lose quite a bit here as Brian McCann and the 07
of Jacob Elliott.
Jacob Elliott just driving on by.
Jacob Elliott has been very strong in this series so far. Won at Lime Rock in his first start of the season. Very aggressive, though, and not a great qualifying effort from him today. Started 15th. That puts him down starting from 10th in class, as Zach Millett now has just passed Jason Duckworth in super late models, already getting into that field. But it's very important to note where Jacob Elliott started in this race, 10th in class. He's already 3rd in class. He's driven by, let's see, Leonardo Elijah, Kevin McCann, actually no, Mark Truxell, I believe, Jesse Redding, Jason Nethery, Chris Gones, Troy Radford, now Mark Thomas, and working on Brian McCann as they run 4 seconds behind Steve Singer. So clearly there is something to being a New York native, especially when you drive the number 6 car and your name is Steve Singer, as Mark Thomas now has been caught by Troy Radford, and we've got a battle brewing for 4th position in late model stocks.
And they're all very, very close together. Mark Thomas, Troy Radford, and I think there was a little bit of wall contact up there with Elliott coming off of the last corner. But moving on to a little bit other battles on the racetrack.
Well, there was briefly a pass. Brandon Mefford has finally made a pass over Chris Elliott. Chris Elliott falling back now as Eddie Rose, the final car on the racetrack. There was, I think, a puff of smoke from either Thomas or Radford going through turn 7. Thankfully, nothing too crazy as Chris Gones rides behind these drivers, and Jason Nethery, Kevin McCann kind of bring up a little bit further back. Kevin McCann, by the way, is now into 8th in class and is trying to do the math about 18 seconds back of Steve Singer as Radford gives it a go there on Mark Thomas. Thomas has got to have some damage to the engine. I mean, you can see that the hood has popped up, and usually, Zach, when the hood has popped up like that, you've been into a barrier or a car pretty stiffly, and you've done some damage to your race car.
Well, Andrew, it would surprise you to know, actually, I did a little bit of research to find out what happened to Mark Thomas in that 50 late model stock car. Apparently, these drivers need to be a little bit careful when rolling through the bus stop. He hopped over one of the rumble strips, and it popped the hood right up.
Huh. Let's see if we can get a replay for it. I can't promise that we can get a replay for it, but we're going to try. This is where it already happened, so we have to go a little bit further back, and this is going to be...
Lap 4 is where it happened, Andrew. Lap 4 going through the bus stop.
Previous lap. I think it's this lap here then. Yep. No damage here. This is when Millett was still behind him, along with Brian McCann.
It actually just passed Brian McCann, who had just tank slapped the wall coming off the last corner.
So let's ride on board with Mark Thomas and see if maybe these drivers are knocking oil pans, figuratively, out from underneath their race cars, certainly doing some damage to the aero components, and that could be a difficult thing to deal with as well. You could ding up a couple of panels on your race car and now have to deal with a parachute on the nose of your car in the case of Mark Thomas. Right there. Wow.
Right
that
over
is
the rumble
so weird.
Something you definitely didn't expect to see, especially since we've seen all of these drivers running relatively the same line through the bus stop, and just really a freak accident, if you ask me. Just popped right over, and here we're slowing it down a little bit, passing the 100 board. First apex, pops the rumble strip, and then boom, right there.
I don't think it was even from the second round. I think it was from the first bit of rumble strip, and we'll take a look at this one more time as there's some alternate pit strategy taking place. This will really show us. Watch here, first bit of rumble strips, slams back down on the pavement, I think is what did it. And then, yeah, I think it was just convenient timing. I don't think it was even the second rumble strip that popped the hood. That's really, really bizarre.
Absolutely, and it's probably going to give him a little bit of engine damage, really thinking about it, because usually when cars on iRacing take a bit of a front impact, it tends to really just make the motor bog down a little bit more, sacrifice engine power. As we see here, Elliott in the 07 exiting pit road for the late model stock cars and merging right back out. Side by side going up the S's.
Brandon Mefford there on the left side.
Maybe taking tires or maybe falling back in line. Not
oh, that's
pretty close.
Now in IMSA, that would be a penalty for Jacob Elliott. When you're in stock cars, rules are a little bit different, but that was scary. And now moving over in the braking again, that would be frowned upon in IMSA. Again, stock cars, a little bit different. Driving standards are changed a little bit when there's only 4 gears like this, but Jacob Elliott gets in front of Brandon Mefford and now gets after Matthew Kopp, and this is what I mean. He has been very aggressive. He was very aggressive last week in racing with Spencer Torrance, who is currently leading, actually, in Super Late Models. We're going to circle back to him in a moment. Sends it up the inside here. Yeah. I mean, he is very, very aggressive. He wants to go win these races, does not care about who he has to pass and how he has to pass them to do it, so long as he keeps his car in one piece.
Did he take tires, though? It was only 8 seconds in the box. It might have just been fuel only.
No, that's a fuel only for sure, especially this early in the race, and he did a similar thing last week in Montreal because Steve Singer did a similar thing to try and get off strategy, try something. But oftentimes what we learn in these road course leagues like this that have a very straightforward kind of fuel situation as far as this is a, well, we can bring the race details up and show you, a 45% fuel load race with options for tires. You do need fuel. You can at some tracks, you're not going to do it tonight, but you can at some tracks try and save, make it a one stop. That actually happens. Spencer Torrance did it last week in Montreal. Otherwise, it's a very cut and dry 2-stop race. You can't really do a whole lot to mess with it. It's really just a matter of when you want to pit, and I think the best thing you could do for yourself is probably to pit when you're out of fuel. Run it as long as you can, run the car dry, pit at the end of the run as late as you possibly can. And the reason for that being, Zach, do you know why?
Let me think, because this is one thing that I've done a few times in my racing experience on iRacing. Stretch that fuel as long as you possibly can to make your runs shorter towards the end and really be able to run longer on the fuel than any others can.
Yes. I think in a traditional oval race, you would say that. More so on a road course, you're doing it because you can limit the amount of time that you have to refuel. That's the reason number one. In the last pit stop, you limit the time you have to spend in the pit lane on your last pit stop. That's reason number one. But the even bigger reason is you can see somebody has taken a spin. I think it might have been Matthew Kopp. The biggest reason why you want to run your run as long as you can go and go race on low fuel load is because if you have a low fuel load, the car is lighter, you are pulling less weight. And especially at a course like Watkins Glen, you want to have as little weight as possible, be on throttle as much as possible, and make as much time up in a straight line as you possibly can, as Matthew Kopp has this issue on the front stretch. Very odd. Tracked out into the grass on the front stretch, right in front of race leader Spencer Torrance, and went for a bit of a spin.
You can see right here, he's coming off the corner, just barely flips those right sides into the grass. And I do believe he broke the toe, or, excuse me, I'm so used to Cup cars having toe links now. It didn't break a toe link, but he did snap the tire off, which obviously he's not going to be able to turn. And, well, now he's sitting on pit road trying to get that car in a better standpoint.
Well, our race leader has caught the back end of the late model stock grid. Spencer Torrance has caught up, and he's got some interesting internet connectivity, I will say, but the driver from Firelight Esports has been a welcome addition to this super late model class, and found out about these races through Pit Stop TV and specifically our chats over in the Firelight Discord. It is so cool to see Spencer in this series and be able to talk about a Firelight entry. Just needs to get a new ISP sponsor, I think, because he's having some trouble there, but the Brez Coffee Company number 10 looks fantastic, and you know, it takes a lot to get a brown race car to look good, but that Brez Coffee Company and specifically this paint scheme, but that logo in this paint scheme really do well on this race car. The Challenger decals, everything about it's Charger decals. There we go. It's a weird day, but the Charger decals, the sponsor logos, everything just works on this brown machine. It really does look good.
Yeah, I mean, the Challenger logos on the late model stock car, I think.
Well, Charger in this case, I had to catch myself there.
Charger,
Challenger, same thing. Mopar.
To the Ford and the Mustang, the Camry and the Toyota. Oh, what a move up there on the inside. They are side by side going to the S's, and it looks like the 10 has cleared and will take the lead away. Or actually, no, he's lapping the late model stock car. I was so caught up in the moment there.
Yeah, just a bit of a difference as he laps Brandon Mefford in 12th place in late model stocks. Now comes up to Jacob Elliott, and this will be interesting. Last week in Montreal, actually, these two drivers had several run-ins. As you can see, the blinking there for Torrance is a bit of a difficult thing to deal with. We'll go up to Elliott then. But these two drivers had a couple of run-ins, a little bit of contact at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve last week because Torrance had fallen back on old tires and Elliott wanted to go by, was faster in the mid-corner speed, but Torrance pulled away on the straightaways, and now Torrance, with all of that super late model power, goes straight on by Jacob Elliott in a last-second attempt there to turn 6, and Elliott gets in a little bit deep, Spencer a little bit deep. I don't know that they're thinking about that right now, but it's fun for us to dramatize a little bit, as now Elliott is going to get to the back end of Torrance here. This could be a little bit fun, and now he's gone. This Superman, it is crazy.
Yeah, he keeps blinking out here and there and having a little connectivity issues, but watching them do their work right now as he blinks out again. Comes right back up as we go up to the S's. We see right here the 07 of Elliott once again looking to try and take another spot away from the 43 Elijah, I believe.
Leonardo Elijah.
Yep. Right there in front of him, and look at how close he gets to the white line on the right side. There's nowhere else to go but into the grass, and we saw earlier what happens when you dip those tires into the grass side by side through the entry into the bus stop, and he's going to take that spot away, promote him up to P13 in class, first car a lap down compared to the Supers, and he is driving away right now. That strategy must be working out wonders for him right now.
Well, that took a special level of commitment, I have to say. That was pretty cool to see as we've got late model stocks on the pit lane. Here comes Troy Radford joining Chris Goins on the pit lane, and Chris Elliott looks like also the pit lane from the lap prior. Chris Elliott was in for 20 seconds in his box, 50 seconds now total on the pit lane, and he will head back out, is now 1 lap down, working on 2 laps down as Torrance goes by in the background. There goes Radford, must have been a 2-tire stop, I think. That or he just put a lot of fuel in it. Nethery, the pit lane, looks like I think these are fuel-only stops, Zach, but, there's 2.
Tires right there on the 21.
There's at least 2 for Reading, and they could go for left sides. This is a predominantly right-turning course, and sure enough, that's right sides, or left sides, rather, for Jesse Reading. With all the right-hand turns, that wears the lefts more than it does the rights. That's very smart from these drivers.
Definitely. Usually when you see these cars on an oval track, they want to put the right side tires on only when it comes to short pit stops.
Troxel for 4.
Obviously, the right sides wear more and help you with cornering speed if you take them just predominantly. You can see here one of the Supers in. Tucker is just making it to his box. What do we see here? He's just sitting there. Oh, the left sides go up. It looks like he's going left sides only. Singer is in.
This is an important stop right here. Does Singer take tires? Yes, left sides at the very least. This is very important to watch. What do the leaders do? We saw Jacob Elliott go for no tires, fuel only, and it seems like the rest of the field, realizing their tires are wearing out, will go for 2 left sides. McCann does the same. Mark Thomas, does he go up on the jacks? No, the 50 stays down on the ground, as now Spencer Torrance works down the pit lane.
He did take his fast repair, though.
And that was important.
So you get that car back to where it needs to be. Spencer Torrance, your leader in the supers, and he blinks out. Right back to us. He's going up on the jack. Left side tires. This is 66. Sean Roberts makes his way in.
Does Torrance take 4, though? The timer a little bit broken now because he's blinking so badly. He is taking 4. That's interesting. We're nearly at halfway. He can easily do a splash and dash later. That's actually not a bad move.
Look at Roberts right behind him, going up on the jack, taking left side tires, but he positioned his car a little bit on an angle so he could get more of a straight shot out, save himself some time on exiting the pit lane, and maybe gain a little bit of ground.
See the 73 of Duckworth into the background now. He comes into his box. 4 tires for Roberts. And I think we'll see the super late models, I think, stick to a 4-tire strategy for most of this season. They've dealt with a lot more tire wear than the late model stocks this season. But definitely late model stocks trying to save time in the pit lane, just take 2. A worthy strategy, as you see Zach Millett fly down the backstretch. Has not... Actually, has he pitted? He must have pitted. He has pitted, so he has come in for full service. 4 tires for himself as well. And now Elliott, Jacob Elliott, pitted 7 laps ago.
He has gained time, though, on Spencer Torrance. He's only 6.8 seconds behind, which was a far cry from the 17 that he was earlier after his EOL, or excuse me, his pass-through penalty. And there's a big, big difference. You can see he's about 6.7 to Duckworth.
And that's actually tracking to Torrance. Duckworth is further down the order now. It doesn't say the right name. It will update here across the start-finish line. But I promise you, that is tracking to Jason Duckworth currently. To Spencer Torrance, and there it goes.
And he goes purple.
And Torrance is almost within range here from the onboard camera. Very, very soon, you'll see the 10 car.
That is, I believe, that's Brian McCann in front of him going through the S's. I see a blue car, and I'm thinking Brian McCann.
I think it'll be Chris Elliott maybe from the late model stocks. He's further down the order. No, it's not Chris Elliott. It's definitely not Brian McCann, though. I'm not sure who that is yet. Red undercarriage. It could be...
The late model stock car, though. He is closing very, very quickly.
I think it's Brandon Mefford, actually, the 83 car.
It might be, but definitely something to keep an eye on. The one thing I'm more interested in is the fact that Sean Roberts in the 66, who was running very, very good, is now a lap down.
Yeah, it looks like he has towed or potentially dropped out of the session. Let's see if we can get a look back.
Sean Roberts lost connection to...
Well, there you go. We don't have to take a replay now. So we'll cancel that replay and come back to live picture, answering our questions very quickly there. But Kevin McCann, I will say, has worked through the field. A little bit of a detour from the drivers we were just talking about. We're hitting halfway this lap. You can't see anything here for Kevin McCann because he had to start from the pit lane. When that happens, unfortunately, driver data is not sent to ATVO, but McCann has gone from the back end of the field, starting from the pit lane all the way through this late model stock field now to 8th place, working on 7th in class. And I can only imagine he's going to grab 1, 2, 3 more spots probably before the end of this race, if not more. I mean, clearly he's going to catch Nethery. Whether or not he passes him is a different story. I'm sure he'll pass the 34 car, though. Then it's Mark Thomas for 6th, and Thomas has been struggling today. Then it would be Chris Goins, who's been very quiet. So I think at least a couple of more positions is realistic for the 33 car.
Yeah, and you can see here, he's getting a really good run on corner exit. I don't know if he'll be able to take that spot. He seems to be, honestly, he seems to be down on horsepower because it looks like he has the same issue that Mark Thomas had earlier where his hood is a little bit pushed up and he might have to use a fast repair next stop. So big thing for him right now is going to be cornering speed if he's down on horsepower, because that's the only thing that's going to keep him in contention to pass anybody right now. See, going up the S's, there's no gain. There's absolutely no gain. He's just sitting in the wake of the car in front, doing whatever he can to stick with it, and it's just going to be the matter of being late on the brakes, sending it, and really doing whatever he can to stay in contention.
Different story here. Here goes Joe Tucker on by Jacob Elliott, or trying to. Get by
Very, very
Jacob
close.
Elliott. That was an attempt into turn 6. Falls back now for turn 7. Will he give it a go into the 90 for turn 1? That's an interesting question. Joe Tucker, I think, been very realistic about his opportunities. He has struggled a little bit in this super late model this season and doesn't want to push anything too crazy. What's interesting, though, is he keeps getting to the inside of Elliott, kind of spooking him into the corner, and I think costing Elliott just maybe a half a tenth or so each corner. Just a little bit, not quite going there. I think he'd probably save him time, honestly, in the long run, if he would just go for the move.
Yeah, if I had a nickel for every time somebody told me to go for the move, I'd be a very rich man right now. But you can see here.
Well, you did, and you went P10 in Summer Shootout, I'm just saying.
Just a little bit. It's not like we drove through a 12-car pileup or anything. But going into the bus stop right here, Tucker has finally taken the spot away. But look at Elliott. He's still on the back bumper. You can see here the difference between the supers and the late model stock. But the big thing right now is the cornering speed. And the cornering speed for late model stock cars with that grip is keeping Elliott right there with Tucker. But there's the straightaway speed for the super late model, and there he goes. P3 and super late models is now pulling away from what is, I believe, 1, 2, 3. I actually don't know where Elliott has lined up at the moment.
Those were both third-place drivers.
Well, then, if I would have known that sooner or later, that would have actually set up my punchline that I had. So, but at least that's P3 for each, fighting for it on track. Not for position, but on track at least. As Elliott is closing on Brian McCann. And this is going to create an interesting battle as the strategies offset between the two of them. And one interesting thing is Brian McCann did not repair his damage from his wreck earlier, I do believe. You can see there's the left front damage on that car. And he is still struggling overall with the pace as Tucker closes in on him, looks to the inside. Going to take that spot, I believe, going into the bus stop. But look at that cut. He just fell back right in line behind Tucker.
Oh, this is frustrating.
There. It's going to hold him up, and that's going to bring Elliott into the show.
Wow.
Here's the fight for second in the late model stocks.
And Tucker is going to get pushed behind these two and then have the power to go right back on by on the backstretch here. The second backstretch, if you will. He's going to get clear by turn 6 and leaves Brian McCann to deal with the mess that he's just kind of created. Oh, that is painful for Brian McCann, as Jacob Elliott's going to have a big move here for turn 7. To the inside he goes, and pass in the works for position number 2 in late model stocks. Pass made now by Jacob Elliott for position number 2 in late model stocks. What's more interesting about this fight, though, Zach, as Sean Roberts now goes to pass both of these drivers in second and third. Oh, and that's going to hold McCann up even more. Oh, my goodness. These super drivers need to pay Brian McCann. This has been an onslaught. The last lap, this poor 3-car has really had to deal with the worst of traffic. However, these drivers have really closed in on Steve Singer. Well, they had closed in until this happened. They were just a couple of seconds back of Singer until this happened. Now they're back to 5 seconds back. But at one point, Brian McCann was only about 2 seconds back of the 6-car. And that is a different story from prior to pit stops when they were 5 or 6 seconds behind now. So I think we need to watch the 6. Watch the delta from first to second in late model stocks for a little bit. We'll see if they close back up. If so, there's a storyline there, and I wonder if Steve Singer is saving fuel to try and cut a pit stop.
You know, this is one of the big things that a lot of people don't understand about road course racing. You lose time a lot more predominantly than you do on an oval. Now, you can carry a lot more speed through the corners on ovals when it comes to a short track car like the super late model or the late model stock car. You know, you run side by side for 2 laps, you may go from sitting 2 tenths behind the leader to about 6 or 7 tenths behind the leader just from that lap battling. You sit side by side on a road course, there's a lot more technical corners that you can't carry a ton of speed through. Now the S's is one thing, but the 90 in turn 1, that's another. Whether you enter on the bottom or the top, your speed is going to be determined really on corner entry, and it's going to determine how much time you lose. Side by side through 1 or 2 corners on a road course, you're going to lose anywhere between a second to a second and a half. Oh, Tucker goes through the grass. He's big wiggle going into the carousel.
And Tucker now holding up the 66, and Jacob Elliott, oh my goodness, week number 2 of him having to deal with a lot of super late model traffic that's hindering him. And yeah, Tucker got into the side of the 07 there. This has just, man, I don't even know. I don't even know what to say about it now. Oh, and Elliott's not having it.
Oh my goodness. There goes Elliott once again. Swings a little wide on the exit. He's using all the racetrack, but he's lost 6 more tenths to Steve Singer as
he's
takes
to get out of it.
Road.
Yeah, he's frustrated.
He's very, very frustrated. But one thing that we haven't focused on here in a second, Zach Millett has taken the lead. He's 5 seconds in front of Spencer Torrence.
Yeah, that happened a couple of laps ago. It looks like everything's just been so exciting with these drivers. We will look for that pass, actually, for the race lead in just a moment. You see Elliott into his box. Let's see how long this takes. He is going for left sides. I'm surprised there. He is all over the throttle. He has pinned it. It is loud down here in the pit box. He now gets away.
Here's the interesting thing. Is he short pitting? Maybe this was part of his strategy.
It is, but he pitted way earlier. He mentioned it last week in Montreal. He pitted way earlier this evening. I think 7 laps prior to the rest of these guys. I don't know that it has a huge significance as far as time on the racetrack. If anything, I still think going late in the run and taking less fuel at the second stop, just a splash and dash, is probably more efficient overall, but it is an attempt to, I think more so to get out of the traffic, Zach, to get out of what he was just dealing with and was slowing him down.
It is possible. Now he'll have a clean racetrack, be able to focus forward on moving that car forward as we see a fight here for what is P4 on the racetrack as Zach Millett passes him on by. You can see right back there Spencer Torrence in the background as they fight for 4th in the late model stock cars.
And let's see if we can find where Torrence lost the race lead.
Zach Millett rolling through the carousel right now. There is Spencer Torrence.
This is exactly why. There you go.
He's won.
Oh my goodness, he's going to be frustrated the second week in a row that something has happened. Oh my.
And he had a still quite sizable margin to Zach Millett, and
yeah,
that's going to hinder him a lot, especially with the advantage he had with Zach Millett having to do the pass-through penalty. You can see him going through the carousel, blinking out a little bit, getting onto the power. That's the old tires for you. He dips onto the rumble strip just a little bit. He catches the car quite well, but that's a little bit of nose damage for that super late model. And Zach Millett passes, I believe I'm still saying his last name right. I'm doing the same thing that you're doing.
Millett. It was clarified to me after round 1, Millett, but yeah, second week in a row, problems for Spencer Torrence. Last week it was a botched pit entry, I believe, or a pit strategy, one of the two, and it really held up. And you can see there how long it took for Millett to get to him. I believe it was still a 5-second or so gap, and that's actually why it didn't stand out to me at first. Before the pass, it was about a 5-second gap as you see Thomas and McCann fight. Kevin McCann goes by. Prior to that mistake for Spencer Torrence, he was 5 seconds ahead. After the mistake, he's 5 seconds behind. It didn't even faze me at first until I noticed the names were swapped when you mentioned it. Very odd. He just went around like that. We're not seeing the supers struggle as much here as we have seen them this season, but it has been a very common issue for these cars to just burn these tires off and have those issues later on in the race. We see that again here. Spencer Torrence just got loose, lost it out of the carousel, got back going, though only lost 10 seconds or so in total, and he's still not far back from Zach Millett. Should something happen to Zach, he's there to pounce.
Absolutely, and he needs to be absolutely perfect to catch Zach Millett. Spencer Torrence just needs to be able to close that, and Jason Nethery on pit road right now. It looks like he took either repairs or tires.
That's 4 tires for sure.
22.43 seconds in the box. He is out and away with about 20 laps to go. Or excuse me, no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking something totally different. About 13 laps to go. But he is a lap down, so about 12 for him compared to the super late models. As we focus on Steve Singer, who is leading by a sizable margin over Chris Gones in P2, who is 17.6 seconds behind.
Part of this is because Brian McCann is finishing up his second pit stop on the evening. And again, I wonder, it's going to be more difficult now to track with Steve Singer, but let's go on board and listen to the driver of the number 6, see what he's doing behind the wheel, see if he's saving any fuel or not, because I really do wonder. The way he lost time early, if it was traffic or if it was fuel savings, it doesn't look like or sound like he's saving fuel there in turn 6 or turn 7. But let's wait for turn 1. If there's anywhere he's saving fuel, it would be turn 1. Downhill braking, hard braking zone. If there's anywhere that he's putting the clutch in, listen for it here in the into the 90. No sir, no clutch.
He is full send, firewall deep into these corners, down into second gear, pops it up to third, into fourth through the S's, and you know, one thing that Tigger doesn't show, you saw it on his relative, as you can see, like the relative that Mark Thomas has showing his stop, he was P3 overall. P3 overall. As in, he's in front of late model stock cars, he's in front of super late models, and he's trucking. He is going strong. Still 18 seconds in front of Chris Goins. He's been one of the more competitive late model stock cars throughout the season, and one that I think that if a late model stock car was to go for an overall victory, he'd be one of the guys who'd be right there for that overall.
The trouble with that is he has struggled the opening couple of races this season. He really has not been himself through the first 3 races. Really, you could say he started out Homestead on a good note, but through Lime Rock and Montreal last week especially, he has not been himself in the number 6. Tonight, this is what we expect from Steve Singer. And I don't know if it's just a Watkins Glen thing or if maybe his trip from New Hampshire earlier today reinvigorated him. I don't know. But this is the Steve Singer we're used to seeing. And part of it will, of course, be the win penalty. And he's, of course, on track to a win right now. If he holds on to it, of course, he'd have to deal with a win penalty, I believe, just an EOL next week at, I guess, next race at Mid-Ohio. It could be partly the win penalty for Kevin McCann, but he's also driven away from Brian McCann, and those two have been oh so close in pace this season, as now the lead swings back the way of Spencer Torrence as Zach Millet's in the pit lane. This is for a long time, Zach. Could this be a penalty? It has to be, of some sort. Wow.
Well, I was fully expecting Zach Millet to walk away after regaining the lead. I did not expect, however, to see a penalty. That must be a speeding penalty.
It could be. Let's go back and take a look at it. Here's car 315. This won't give us a great view, honestly. It really won't tell us a whole lot, but...
Dipping.
Did he come in hot, maybe?
Came in. He locked the brakes up quite well. He got it
came in
down.
pretty slow.
So then where...
Could be an incident penalty, though.
It could be. Looking at...
I mean, keep in mind, that penalty at 21 incidents, he's probably dipped a wheel a couple of times. I don't think he's had any 4Xs, so I don't know how he would hit 21 Xs but on his own, but... Oh, wow, that's not how you do it either. That's... a lot of things going wrong very suddenly for Zach Millet.
It's very surprising for him, as we did not expect someone of his caliber to have to take a pit stop like that and cost so much time. As I have just learned, Chris Elliott is out of the session in the 29 car, as we see Tucker on pit road now taking left side tires.
Likely all 4 as well.
It's possible. He's still sitting, yep, up on the jack for the right sides, and he'll drive away after that. We Steve, excuse me, Goins in pit road right now, taking his fast repair, obviously. Up on the jack. No. Looks like it's fuel and go.
He'll be joined by Jesse Redding in the 21 car. You see Mark Thomas and Spencer Torrence in the background. Torrence goes by the 50 car of Thomas and puts him 1 lap down overall once again. Steve Singer is still your late model stock race winner. Now 9 laps to go for car number 6, as he's just 10 seconds, by the way. Just 10 seconds behind Spencer Torrence, who has got much more pace. We're talking about 2.5 seconds per lap. Part of that, of course, is that Spencer Torrence actually did just pit. So he is done with his pit stops for the day. recently taking a 4-tire stop of 21 seconds, but it's still crazy how at 32 laps into this race, they're that close on the racetrack, even if it is by virtue of the pit stop. It's insane, because this is the one race, it seems like, where these cars are vastly different.
Absolutely, and Spencer Torrance, 22 seconds in front of Duckworth, 32 seconds in front of Millett after his penalty, and just further on down the distance, we have Steve Singer, who is 35 seconds in front of Brian McCann. I believe he has yet to stop, though.
Singer does still have to pit, and that's going to close that back up, and I wonder again if Singer maybe thinks he's good. I don't know. He lost time early, and he pitted very close to halfway. He's always got something up his sleeve. Do I believe he's trying to stretch it? Probably not. I doubt it, honestly. It would take probably a lot more than he wants to stress himself with, and sure enough, here he comes to the pit lane. But it's always going to have me guessing. These drivers, and Steve Singer specifically, is he going to try and stretch it? Is he going to try and do something different? He did something different at Montreal last week. It seemed to help for a little bit. It just didn't quite work out when it was all said and done, but a fast fix there. Fast repair for Steve Singer. We'll get him back on the racetrack shortly. Will it still be ahead of Brian McCann? It surely should be.
Gas and go.
That's a bit slower than McCann's stop, but he will keep the race lead.
He does have McCann 5 seconds back, and Elliott, who is 7.5 seconds back. I believe Elliott took tires on his stop, though, didn't he?
Yes. He did take 2 left sides. He took no tires early as Leonardo Elijah blends in. Elliott took no tires early and left sides late. And of course, he pitted much earlier. He does have quite a few laps now. He has, let's see, 8 laps on those left sides as Steve Singer has finally just pitted, and Brian McCann has a nose full of Mark Truxell into the bus stop chicane. That was hairy for a moment.
This is costing him time.
Yeah, this is huge.
0-7.
This is huge for Brian McCann, getting held up behind Mark Truxell, who runs 16th, 1 lap down.
And Jacob Elliott is reveling in this as he has closed quite a bit now. Only about 1.4 seconds behind McCann as he's going to look to the inside.
Oh, that was deep, but he made it work.
Very, very deep.
He made it work.
He cost himself just a little bit of time.
Oh, no.
Oh, the 21 of Jesse Redding is around.
Jesse Redding spinning out of turn number 1.
And
Let's take a look.
Lots of nose.
Take a look back as to what happened to driver 21. He's had a bit of an up and down season so far. Chasing Brian Rose, got down onto the inside curbing, and yep, that will certainly happen. I did that a couple of times in practice myself. It is not easy to get through turn 1 and make the most speed in these cars. This car is really, really weird to get the most speed out of, especially out of road courses. Redding now goes through the grass there in the bus stop. This is a very weird car to drive at the limit, especially on a road course, especially at Watkins Glen. There's so much grip in the late model stock car. You have got to be absolutely white knuckle sending it around this place and on the throttle as much as you can be. Turn 1 is weird because you want to try and get all the way down to that apex, Zach, but if you get down onto the flat there of the curbing, you're going to get the car way too upset and spin it. It's a very fine line you have to ride on in the late model stock car.
Absolutely, and it's so easy to get on the power in the late model stock car and really just get the whole thing upset. You don't want to slam the gas, but there's nothing saying you can't do it, as Zach Millett is passing the 73 of Duckworth for second in the super late model division, and he is still quite a margin behind Spencer Torrance. And think about it this way. If he had not had that 40-second penalty that I'm assuming he had, which was a 40-second hold, because he was in the box for about 60 seconds, 20 seconds for the stop, that would put him, math checks out, about 8 seconds in front of Spencer Torrance with 5 laps to go.
That sounds about right. That sounds about right. That sounds, yeah, I mean, that's a few extra seconds since the pit stop. That sounds right about where it would have been. And now it's a completely different story, and we're going to be talking about a first-time winner in the Noble Can-Am Series in Super Late Models For the first time since race number 1, when Zach Millett went to victory lane to nobody's surprise. And finally, we're going to have a new driver in victory lane so long as Spencer Torrence can nurse this 33-second gap. He really doesn't have to do much, Zach. 5 laps to go, coming to 4. 33 seconds. He really doesn't have to do much. He could probably leave the car in 4th gear at this point and just nurse it around here and be perfectly fine.
Don't spin. Don't spin. Just keep those tires cool. Don't push. You've got a huge margin coming to 4 laps to go. Heck, you've even got another super late model right in front of you that you're about to put another lap down, and another one another second up the road. It is very much possible for you to continue to just do what you're doing, let the car do its thing, roll with the punches, and you got yourself a first-time winner tonight.
I'm actually going over to the Firelight Discord now to tell these guys to tune in, because they're about to see one of their drivers go to victory lane, it looks like, in the No Bull Can-Am series. And we can't say that too definitively just yet. There's still a lot that can go wrong, as he's got a lap 2 of his countrymen, if you will, in the super late models, Joe Tucker and Jason Duckworth, who run 3rd and 4th in a fight for that position. But quite frankly, with 3.5 laps left, 33 seconds, and Zach Millett, I'm sure, not really pushing too much, it's looking good for the Brez Coffee Company, number 10. And there's a lot of other partners that I'm privy to knowing about over at Firelight Esports that I want to give a mention to. Of course, Brez Coffee Company on the hood, IMB Racewear, a big part of that team, Firelight Esports, of course, lightstuff.gg, Do the Move podcast, Big Evil Designs, Lefty, of course, Pit Stop TV, Whiplash Media Simcams have gotten involved recently. There's so many different parties that get things going on over there. They have a Forza team now, thanks to Swordfish Motorsports. So much going on at Firelight Esports, and I hope that I'm able to be a part of them rising through the world of iRacing and esports in general to the highest of ranks, because it really is just a cool community to be a part of, thanks to Brady Wagoner, of course, Josh Stiles, everybody else over there. I was able to take part in an event really for the first time with them this past week in Firecracker 400 prelims, thanks to eRacer GG. And it didn't go too well, Zach, I will say. I transferred out of my heat race into the LCQ, or I guess into the proper prelim, but it didn't go too well from there, as we had a tornado warning from my spotter, missed the start of the race. It all went to hell in a handbasket, but it is such a good community over at Firelight Esports, and it's so cool now to see one of these drivers, one of our drivers, 2 laps away from a victory, Spencer Torrence, just trying to get this car around this racetrack a couple of more times as he went on by that fight between Jason Duckworth and Joe Tucker for 3rd and 4th in super late models. Do want to touch back on late model stocks now that I've paid off all those little mentions for Firelight. Steve Singer, Brian McCann, Jacob Elliott still in that same order, nothing changing. I'm actually surprised that McCann has gotten back away from Elliott.
Wasn't I supposed to spot for you for your prelim, Andrew?
You were, and then I switched prelims.
Well, nuts.
But that's the way it goes. Yeah, shout out to Joe Morganti, by the way. I'm sure it probably felt a little bit rough for him specifically, because he was the spotter that had the tornado warning, and I think a tornado touched down the town south of him, but thankfully he's safe, everybody's safe, and we got through the day. It was just a weird one for sure for Firecracker prelims. Let's go back to this fight, though, and actually one car is off the racetrack. Who in the world is that? That was the 22 of Matthew Kopp on the outside of the carousel, and he is all over the place right now trying to get back onto the track. Does so finally as Duckworth and Tucker pass him, but we've got a nice little fight coming to the white flag this time by between Tucker and Duckworth. We're going to have to keep watching these cars.
They are still very close together as we are coming off the final corner. White flag in the air for Spencer Torrence, presented to you by Whiplash Simcams, and he has got a healthy margin over Zach Millett. And then further on back, Steve Singer is going to take the white flag for the late model stock cars presented by Whiplash Simcams, and he's got 4 seconds to second place. That is Brian McCann. He's lost a little bit of a margin. He's still coming down the backstretch into the bus stop. So still a long ways to go for the late model stock car division, but 31 seconds in front of Zach Millett. Spencer Torrence is leading this field. He should be coming down the backstretch into the bus stop. There he goes. through the carousel now. And he still, like I said, Andrew, healthy margin over Zach Millett. He can coast from here. If he runs out of gas, it's not going to be a big deal. He should be able to make it back to the line. And yeah, he's going to be able to cruise to a first one, like you said, Andrew, for Firelight Esports. And honestly, you mind if I take this one?
Well, it's the first new winner since Homestead Miami Speedway when Zach Millett went to Victory Lane. The first time we have a different winner in the Super Late Model. Spencer Torrance is going to win at Watkins Glen.
There he goes across the line, and there is your leader, Steve Singer, for the late model stock, still going through the S's, and still only Brian McCann has closed about 3/10 over the course of that last lap. Jacob Elliott, P3, Bradford in 4th for the 94, and then Chris Goins in 5th. Still quite a ways back as Steve Singer goes through the carousel, through the bus stop into the carousel. And he has just put on an absolute masterclass tonight, leading this entire late model stock car field, flag to flag, really, as he comes through the last 2 corners. And like I said, Andrew, this man right here is going to be one of the few people I think that will compete for the overall. He is still 3rd overall for all of the race cars on track, the supers and the late model stock cars. Round the final corner, past the pit entrance, checkered flag in hand for Steve Singer as he's going to take a win here at Watkins Glen.
Just a couple of more cars on the lead lap. Those are Brian McCann and Jacob Elliott, who finishes 5th place overall. Joe Tucker, 6th overall, 1 lap down. And Spencer Torrance. I want all you Firelight guys who are watching this evening over on YouTube to go say something in the chat. Represent, boys, as this is a big one for Spencer Torrance. On board with him down the backstretch. I'm sure he's got more gas in the car. I think just coasting, reveling in the moment. From the Mid-South, driver out of Arkansas. Yeah, got to save the gas for the burnout, that's right. But a driver out of Arkansas, winning here on a road course in a super late model in New York, virtually anyways, in the Noble Can-Am Series, slowly around turn 6. I wonder, there's no way he was that close on fuel, right? 9 laps since the last stop? Certainly he's got fuel.
These drivers went a lot further of a distance.
I'd have thought, I mean, Zach Millett went 10. Yeah, he's got fuel. Okay, he's got fuel. He was just teasing us a little bit as he comes around to the front stretch, and we'll park it. I think just enjoying the moment with, I think he's in the league Discord, couldn't be with the team Discord, but...
blow the rears off that car, baby!
Oh, I'm sure he will. He and Steve Singer both. Singer comes around turn 6 and 7, and Spencer Torrance in Spencer Torrance fashion will blink a little bit on the start-finish line and do himself some victory celebration. Thanks to Brez Coffee Company on board. That Dodge Charger brings it to a stop. Is he going to load him up some more? I think he stalled the car.
Might have, just a little bit.
Singer going to take his part, I think, and do some well-run burnouts as well. These 2 drivers really did earn it this evening. 2 brand new winners on the season. We haven't said that very often. It's been a lot of Zach Millett and the McCann brothers, and Singer parking it perfectly in front of our camera and not having the lack of grip to do a burnout. That's the problem. The only issue with the late model stock car is it has too much tire grip to do a burnout.
Dump the clutch and sender. Best way to do it. Dump that clutch, pump that throttle all the way down, and just let her rip. Or get in the grass a little bit so you can offset that car, and there he goes. Steve Singer celebrating his win tonight at Watkins Glen.
While Singer burns it down there on the front stretch, you see Millett in the distance. I think not too happy at all with the way the back end of that race went for him. Let's go back and take a look. And now I see the Firelight boys representing. Good to see you guys here this evening. But let's go back and get a look at our unofficial race results with Spencer Torrance on top of the scoring pylon. He led 35 of the 40 laps. Is that correct? That is insane.
I think so. He did a lot of great racing tonight, especially when it came down to the penalties with Zach Millett. And the first penalty that he had to serve, obviously for his win the previous week with the drive-through penalty, that put him about 20 seconds behind the leader, about 18 seconds actually. And obviously he still had his penalty that he had to serve for whatever reason, which I hope we'll find out later as to what happened, and ends up finishing 33 seconds behind Spencer Torrance. That is 2 super late models for your top 2. And then in 3rd, 4th, and 5th are late model stock cars. Steve Singer, Brian McCann, and Jacob Elliott round out your top 5. Late model stock cars taking more than half of the top 5. Then you've got Joe Tucker and Jason Duckworth in your super late models. 4 of your 5 super late models are split between 3 late model stock cars in the top 10. Troy Radford, Chris Goins, and Kevin McCain round out your top 10 and your top 6 really, for the late model stock cars. Mark Thomas, Brandon Medford, your 11th and 12th place finishers. Your last finisher for the super late models, 5th in class, 13th overall, Sean Roberts, who was able to reconnect and take only 1 lap down at the end of the race. Jason Nethery and Jesse Redding, 14th and 15th. They are your last cars to finish 1 lap down compared to the overall leaders. 2 laps down in the 16th position, Mark Truxell and Leonardo Elijah in 16th and 17th. Matthew Kopp, 3 laps down in 18th. Eddie Rose in the 19th position. And your only car tonight that did not see the checkered flag, that would be Chris Elliott in the 29, rounding out your 20-car field. And Andrew, what a race. We saw a lot of things going on throughout the field, a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different storylines really moving through this race, and it was just amazing to see how these guys were able to handle it all.
Well, that it was. And first up, we'll get to hear about how these drivers handled it from, specifically, our race winner this evening. The first time we've had a different race winner other than Zach Millett overall, and especially in super late models. Spencer Torrance, the victory lane for Firelight Esports. That is something I've been waiting to say for anybody from Firelight for a long while, but especially for you, Spencer. After last week, it did not go the way you wanted. This week, you nearly fumbled it. But what was the delight like when you found out you were going to be 30 seconds ahead of Zach Millett? And what happened out of turn 5 anyways?
Number 1, easily. That's what happened there. I got it wide, got on the throttle, spun around, did a fun. Zach would have beat me. He had a car issue, so he should have won this race, but here I am. And instead, I would like to thank Brez, IMB Racewear, and you, Andrew, for hosting this series. Also, Firelight for keeping me, around doing things.
Well, it's good to see you, first of all, in this series, the Noble Can-Am series, Spencer. Good to have some involvement from Firelight, but also good to see something go so right after things went so wrong last week at Montreal. From your perspective, now that you've had a week to kind of calm down, what did go wrong?
Oh, I got speeding. I was trying to fuel save, and it was cutting in and out in pit lane, so I gave it just a little bit too much gas, and it hit 6 over. So that's an immediate black flag for my racing.
And of course, this is a new adventure for you, super late models on a road course. It's not an easy monster to try and tame. Now, 5 races left in this series. Mid-Ohio next up. How do you feel for it?
Mid-Ohio, the name is in the track. It is entirely mid.
Oh.
It is not a good track. It is one of my least favorite, but I'll get there.
I know a lot of drivers that would disagree, but that's okay. Everybody has their own opinion. But I will say, this car, I mentioned it earlier to Zach, and we've seen some brown cars in NASCAR over the years, thanks to UPS. Thankfully, the UPS cars always look fantastic. Dale Jarrett, David Reagan, and everybody else. But I will say, this is a good-looking brown race car. It's not easily done. You've done it really nicely here with Brez Coffee Company on board. A really nice-looking race car here from Firelight Esports.
I will shout out, it wasn't me who made it, it was one of our painters. We have a very few talented painters on our team. Steve Rada. Dude is an awesome painter. If you need anything, go look at him. Make sure he's got the option to do it.
He's already asked me for pictures from this one, so I'll be sure to get him a few after this one. Spencer, congratulations. Live it up, buddy, and hopefully we'll see you in a couple of weeks in Mid-Ohio. Potentially in Victory Lane there as well, who knows?
I don't think that's going to happen, but thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it.
Hey, 35 laps led. You led 35 of 40 laps. I don't know what the percentage is. I'm not a calculator, but that's a high number, Spencer. Congratulations.
Yeah, but Zach still should have won it. I'll give it to him. I will see you next week.
Well, there you go. Spencer very humble in his victory here. I think he should have won last week at Montreal. He thinks that Zach should have won this week. I suppose it works out, Zach. Zach Millett should have won, I guess, in Spencer's eyes, and Zach Murtis is talking to Zach Millett next up.
Absolutely, your second place finisher tonight, Zach Millett, who put on really quite a bit of a show to get back up to the front. And Zach, just kind of tell us how things really went for you. We were kind of concerned to see that you had a penalty there at the end after you had just pretty much taken the lead back, and it looked like the race was in your hands. Just kind of walk us through how everything went for you.
Yeah, guys, the range of emotions in this race was ridiculous. But we did all the hard work and came up through, and everything was going perfectly, past Spencer there, and we basically had it, we just had to finish the race, and then my Fanatec equipment decided to completely fail on me. And
oh no.
Yeah, my universal hub apparently just didn't want to shift anymore, and I was stuck in third gear for a whole lap. And then all my buttons stopped working right after, so I couldn't talk to anybody or, tell everybody to get out of the way because I'm dying. So then coming to pit road while trying to get the wheel off, I jabbed the gas just a little too much, and I ended up speeding. And it was just a whole bunch of things going wrong at the terrible time there.
That is quite the unfortunate set of circumstances. You did everything you possibly could to get that car back up to the front of the field. You made really headlines trying to get back up there. You passed a lot of great cars on track. You were able to recover nicely from your EOL that you had to take. Well, excuse me, I keep saying EOL, your pass-through penalty that you had to take at the start of the race. And overall, you turned some really solid laps. Is there anything really that you can take away from tonight other than the fact of you're still able to finish second tonight?
Yeah, I guess I feel pretty good about the race we ran, besides the problems there. Some things you can't help. And, if that didn't happen, I feel like we had it locked up. And actually, if I didn't speed, I probably would have been pretty close. I think I was behind Spencer at the line by 33 seconds, and the penalty itself was 40 seconds. So I don't know. I feel pretty good about the race. Hate not, taking the win at the home track, but it's fun racing these things at this track, man. It's a great series to be a part of, and there's always next week, right?
Absolutely, and not to kick a man while he's down, but Andrew, you can back me up here. We were talking about it on the broadcast. If you had not had that penalty, if the math checks out, I think you would have been able to take the lead and been in front at the finish by about, 8 seconds?
Something around that number, yeah.
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful. It's one stream I'm never gonna go back and watch. That's for sure. But yeah, it was something, man.
Well, we here at Pit Stop TV made sure we had a great broadcast for you guys tonight. And how are you looking forward to, Mid-Ohio? Obviously, our previous guest did not have the best things to say about Mid-Ohio, but what do you have to say moving forward to next week or next race?
Man. I don't know. Anybody can't like Mid-Ohio. That place is amazing. And the super late, it's going to be ridiculous. So it's going to be probably a lot like this place where, it's probably going to be more dominant of the super late on the straights. And I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. There's a lot of tight corners, so that late model stock might take the overall, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Well, two very different opinions moving forward to next race from two different finishers tonight. Zach Millett obviously taking second overall and second in the super late models. You drove a great race tonight, and we really look forward to seeing you next race, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Andrew, I'm tending to agree with him when it comes to Mid-Ohio. I'm looking forward to see how those cars handle on that track.
Well, it was a great show for the D-Line Racing League. It'll be a great show here for the Noble Can-Am Series as well. Steve Singer, though, goes to victory lane for the first time this season in late model stock competition. Usually, Steve, it's been a bit of a disappointing race briefing the next day, but this week, I think, much better spirits. A victory in your home race at Watkins, Glen International. How did it break down from your point of view?
Well, I don't want to say that I was surprised by it, but I kind of was surprised by it. I know I run decent here, obviously, but I only had about 20 laps of practice in, and that was on Monday. Wasn't able to do it Tuesday, and then I was out of town in New Hampshire the rest of the week, and in fact sat down here after getting home at 7:15 tonight. So I was just looking for a solid finish, but we took the pole on a lap that was faster than I'd ever run here in this car. And I don't know, we kind of started to learn stuff throughout the course of the race, got real consistent, and of course brought home the win.
Some days you kind of have that day. When you've had off days, you just have a day that goes completely right, things come together. How rewarding is that? Of course, a lot of hard work going into this season, and finally something goes right, that the clouds break, the sunshine downs upon you, and the iRacing gods smile in your direction. You go to victory lane like this.
Well, they certainly weren't smiling on us in New Hampshire with all the rain, so it's good to come back here and have a successful day. Obviously, winning at the Glen, it's a special place for me, 100%. You know, we're there a bunch throughout the course of the year. In real life, it's only an hour and a half from my home, and I grew up going there, so I don't know. Anything that has to do with racing on a video game or any platform whatsoever that has Watkins Glen, chances are I've probably driven it. So I guess that aspect of it certainly helps.
Well, now you've added a late model stock win here at Watkins Glen. Mid-Ohio, though, a very different story, completely different racetrack. I think we're going to see late model stocks right back all over the super late models. How do you feel about it?
I'm excited. I like Mid-Ohio quite a bit. I wouldn't say I'm the best there. It's an interesting racetrack. It can be pretty technical, and you've got to really nail those turn-ins. If you're a little bit late in a couple of them corners, you'll end up in the grass without any problem whatsoever. So, I don't know. Going to try and put some practice in. We'll see what happens next week or next race.
Well, congratulations once again. A race win here in late model stocks. I think you led the entire racing class, even though it says 0 laps led overall. A job well done for car number 6. We'll see you in Mid-Ohio.
Certainly appreciate it. Got to thank Genesee Brewing for being on the car. Of course, you guys up in the booth, Pit Stop TV, HBR TV. I got to plug myself, you know.
Absolutely.
Track Bar Media as well, jumping on, helping us out as always. We certainly do appreciate all their help.
Absolutely. We appreciate you being here, especially with this Noble Can-Am series. That's Steve Singer from Victory Lane this evening in car number 6. Brian McCann, though, Zach goes second place. His brother won last week. He goes P2, I think, for the second or third, fourth time in a row. Brian McCann, very consistent, always talking to us after these races.
Absolutely. Brian McCann coming home tonight with a P2 finish in class for the late model stock cars. Brian, just tell us how things went for you. We know you had a little bit of left side damage after a little bit of a tank slap on the last corner there. But just kind of tell us how everything went for you and how you were able to rebound and take that second place.
Yeah, where I hit that wall definitely didn't help too much. I think I got past there and lost the position, but it didn't affect my handling or anything, so I was all right after that. I made up a little bit of time, got back up closer to Steve, and Steve was running an amazing race, very consistent, very fast, but I think I was a little faster than him at the end of the run. And then I had about 2 seconds behind him there, and we were multi-class racing into the bus stop and got held up quite a bit. But anyway, I'm glad to take home a second. It was a really fun race.
Well, it should definitely help you when it goes to the points battles. And one thing that we discussed in the booth is the clogging that happened when it came to fighting on track. I know you and Jacob Elliott were getting caught up in a lot of the battles with the super late models. They would struggle a little bit, and you guys would close in, especially on some of the high-speed corners like the bus stop and the carousel. Just kind of tell us how everything was able to work out in your favor and how you were able to avoid those issues and be able to continue onward and really just take home that second place finish.
Yeah, Jacob was in front of me, and then during like the battles you were talking about, and he pitted, so we were on a little bit different pit strategy, and I don't know what happened there, but after I pitted, I came out about a 1.5 in front of him, so that definitely helped me there. I don't know if maybe he messed up or something, or maybe he got held up somewhere else on the track, but when I came out of the pits, I had a clear track in front of me, so I was able to clock off a bunch of good laps, so that might have been it. But yeah, as far as the supers go, I didn't really get a lot of opportunity to ride behind anybody until like mid-race when I was racing with Jacob there. And I didn't know, where their break points were. I didn't know how slow they were in a turn. So that was doing it live for the first time there. We were battling, and I took it real easy. I didn't want to, I'd rather finish top 5 than being stuck in a wall. So I went a little careful on it.
Absolutely. And you definitely did the right thing to be able to bring it home in that second place position for the late model stock cars. You ended up finishing about 4th overall, I believe, for the whole race, really. So that's a great thing to take away, being in a late model stock car. But, excuse me, what's one thing you are looking forward to, really, when it comes to next race at Mid-Ohio?
Just being consistent, being up front. I don't want to get into any wrecks or battles, or just want to come out here and clean car. Hopefully I don't hit the wall like I did this race. But, yeah, just and just have fun.
Absolutely. Well, that was Brian McCann, your second place finisher for tonight, and we definitely look forward to seeing you at the next race at Mid-Ohio. Congratulations on your second place finish.
Thank you. Take it easy.
Brian McCann with another solid run this week. I mean, I think every single week he's having these solid runs. If we go back in the point standings, he's only 13 points behind his brother, who won last time out in round 3. I'm sure Brian's going to take that points lead now back away. Steve's going to close in a little bit. Things are going to move all around. And quite frankly, Spencer Torrance now should go on past Cody Anderson, maybe even Johnny Rapp. I mean, we're going to have a big shuffle through these standings on both sides of the coin, Zach, as we head to the Mid-Ohio next race.
Absolutely. And a lot of cars that actually weren't even here tonight. So it makes all the difference when it comes to the points battles. You've got Mid-Ohio up next, and then Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, or Mosport as a lot of people like to call it, Atlanta, Sonoma, Long Beach. That's going to be a good stretch of races where these guys are going to be able to find their footing and really be able to move forward when it comes to, just the points battle. And I'm inclined to agree with Zach Millett about how the late model stock cars could be relatively competitive for the overall victory when it comes to Mid-Ohio. There's a couple of straightaways at Mid-Ohio that those super late models can really pull away, but those late model stock cars, there's a lot of technical corners that they can shine at and really be able to just pound on those super late models and stay in contention, because you've only got the straightaway right after turn 1, the straightaway after the hairpin, and then the front stretch. And the longest one is the one right after the hairpin, and that's where those late model stock cars are going to lose a lot of ground, and the super late models will be able to pull away. But the rest of the sections on Mid-Ohio, all the technical spots, you can guarantee those late model stock cars will be in contention.
Yeah, I think more specifically, really, you have one straightaway where the super late model, I think, will be beneficial to be in. And that'll be from the keyhole at turn number 2, down past the kink at turn 3 to China Beach at turn 4. Otherwise, the late model stock car, I think, will be the preferred platform of choice next week, which, of course, I think some weeks it'd be interesting if you took a little bit of power out of the super to maybe run the two cars in the same class and see who's able to beat who. I really would be intrigued. I mean, tonight we had supers finishing only 30 seconds ahead of late model stocks. If you were to take away a little bit of their advantage tonight, they'd be close. Surely the super would be the platform of choice, but when we go to some of these other twisty racetracks like Mid-Ohio, like Sonoma, like Long Beach, I think the late model stock is going to be better. And, now we have a much clearer idea of who is what car has what strength than we did at Miami, even Lime Rock in round 2. We actually have a decent outlook on this season. At Miami, we thought still there'd be a couple of rounds where the super was better. Turns out it was one round. Round 4 tonight, I don't see another race aside from maybe Road Atlanta where the super is this good.
Absolutely. And just to kind of go off topic here for a second, one thing that I would love to see for these guys, if they come back to Pit Stop TV right here with us for season 2, I noticed the theme here, sticking with American tracks. If I were to make a suggestion, I would very much like to see them put on next season's schedule 3 tracks. Sebring, I think that track would be amazing for these cars. I think with the new addition of Willow Springs, that would be amazing to see with these cars. And if we're not fully restricted to the United States, maybe Brazil, maybe.
Well, it is a bit of a stretch. Of course, it is the Canada American Series Can-Am. That's the idea there. I think Brazil could potentially fit in maybe as an exhibition round. The one I thought you were going to mention, I'm surprised you didn't, Road America. That would be the perfect race for the Super to go out there and take a big run.
I knew there was one American track that I was forgetting. It slipped my mind. One thing I did forget to mention, though, they do run there already, but they only run it on the oval. Maybe take the New Hampshire road course out for a spin.
That would be interesting. That would be interesting. We'll actually see the D-Line Racing League at New Hampshire in a few weeks in August. Of course, NASCAR should have been there this afternoon. We'll be there tomorrow, and I wonder if Steve is driving back up tomorrow to make the race. I'm not sure, but that would be That would be an interesting one for sure. We'll leave that thought there and leave you guys wondering, though, as we go in to our next bit of racing here at Pit Stop TV. Next up, it's Southern National Motorsports Park for Elite Performance Industries Short Track Mondays, July 17th, tomorrow evening at 8 Eastern, as we head into week number 6 of official racing in 2023, season number 3. Then Tuesday evening, we go to Martinsville Speedway for the D-Line Racing League Mini Star 100 from Martinsville Speedway. And finally, we wrap back around to a new week, a light week of racing coming up. Just Monday and Tuesday left to go. Then we unload at Five Flags Speedway. We'll actually have a Five Flags Speedway week, if you will. We go to Five Flags on Monday for Elite Performance Industries Short Track Mondays with Legend Cars. Then we go back to Five Flags on Tuesday with the D-Line Racing League and their late model stock cars, brought to you by Elevated Performance at 9:15 Eastern on Tuesday, July 25th. And Zach, of course, best of luck to you. If we don't hear from you tomorrow evening for EPI Short Track Mondays, you're coming off of a career result at Cookout Summer Shootout at Charlotte Motor Speedway. I just want to make note of that. We did one of the broadcasts earlier this week, but it really is worth mentioning. Career result, first top 10 of your career. It is so cool that one of our guys at Pit Stop TV is going out there and getting top 10s on the racetrack in such a esteemed competition, Summer Shootout in semi-pro, and now working your way up through that ladder. And you're racing again on Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, Flow Racing. Got to tune in.
Yeah, not to shade on the compliment there for a second, but it's actually not my first top 10 in Legend Car competition.
Well, no, I mean in Summer Shootout.
Well, it's Summer Shootout, yes, but not in Legend Car competition. Let's see. I have a couple top 5s in Chargers, but I don't necessarily like to count them completely just because that's the slower end and the
Chargers are Chargers, but I knew this is at least your first time at Summer Shootout. Of course, I know you've got a couple of Wake County where you've run, and you had top 10s in other, I think even at when you went to that one dirt track at BAPS up in Pennsylvania, but I knew this was your first top 10.
Overall. We finished 19th overall, but we finished top 10 in semi-pro, so that was great for us. And you know, we're actually still fighting the finish of the last Cookout Summer Shootout result, so we have to make our case a little bit more prominently, and hopefully that should be able to get wrapped up here momentarily. But as for on-track results, it was great for us, and actually you can go catch it on my YouTube channel. We did a little bit of a vlog, a recap video of what happened at the Cookout Summer Shootout for round 7, and you'll see another one next Friday when it comes to round 8. And you know, you can see the lovely partners we have here on Pit Stop TV, also partners with me myself when it comes to my Legend Car.
A big shout out to Whiplash Media Simcams, ATVO, and CC's Business here at Pit Stop TV, allowing us to get the job done. That'll do it for us from Watkins Glen International, round 4 of 9 this season for the Noble Can-Am Series. Next up, Mid-Ohio on July 30th in 2 weeks' time, 2 Sundays from now. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow evening for EPI Short Track Mondays at Southern National Motorsports Park. Week number 6 for those Legend Cars. Week number 2 that we're covering them out of 4, but week 6 of 12 for the season. A big shout out, of course, to those make it happen behind the scenes in audio, ATVO, Whiplash Media Simcams, OBS, and iRacing.com. We will see you next time, hopefully tomorrow evening, EPI Short Track Monday, Southern National. We'll see you there.